Hi, I'm Maggie Burnett Stogner, the Executive Director of the Center for Environmental Filmmaking at American University School of Communication in Washington, D.C. And it is my great honor to introduce the dream team of The Elephant Queen. I really want to say congratulations on this extraordinary film that came out in 2019, but also on this comprehensive impact campaign that you've done. So with me today, Mark Diebel and Victoria Stone are the directors of the film. Etienne Olaf is the assistant director of the film, and it won 4 awards at Jackson in 2020. Along with this, Mark wrote and was a cinematographer of the film. Vicky was the producer and co-editor of the film, and Etienne Olaf was the assistant director. For the film's impact campaign, Vicky was the executive director of the outreach and mobile campaign in Kenya. Etienne, who is here with us today from Kenya, is the director of the outreach and mobile campaign, and Mark is a consultant. So welcome. I'm really pleased to be here with you today.
Great.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
I want to go back in time because, sometimes we think about the idea of making a film, but we have to ask ourselves why. What's important about it? What do we hope to accomplish? So I'd like to hear from you. Why was this film so important to make?
We've been living and working and filming in Kenya for about 30 years when we finally felt ready to take on a film about elephants.
I think that the timing was quite auspicious in a way, because we've been living around elephants for 30 years, but also it was a time when elephants were in crisis in terms of poaching, but also there was this threat of human wildlife conflict, human elephant conflict on the horizon, and we could see that was going to get worse. It wasn't going to get better, and so for us it was the fact that we felt ready to do an elephant film, but it just felt really timely because of the challenges we could see elephants were going to face, and our aim was to give people an insight into elephants' lives and really to make people fall in love with them.
What we wanted to do was to make a film that was seen worldwide, but that then specifically made a difference for elephants in Kenya and beyond, but starting in Kenya. And that's really what the outreach campaign and the mobile cinema is all about.
That sounds amazing. Before we get more into the details of that, we often talk about, at least today, impact really starts at the beginning of the film. How did you decide which audiences you wanted to reach in order to affect the kind of impact and change that you desired? And what were some of the creative decisions and approaches and even the emotional tones that helped accomplish that?
And in the making of the film, we knew we wanted to make a film that was for the broadest possible global audience. So really not people who were already really interested in natural history or loved elephants, but people who didn't even know that they might become that interested. And so we approached the whole of the filming in a way where we kept this, it was totally story driven. So it's a 96-minute film, and we kept the involvement with the characters of the elephants and then the world at their toenail height and all the other elephants, and sort of almost saw it as if we were creating an animation in the way we tried to film it and then tell the story. So we built the characters obviously around what happened in the wild over a very long period. We were 4 years actually filming, 4 years living solidly in the field with a small dedicated team. But what we wanted to do, so it was to make an accessible film. Then we've translated it into Ma and Kiswahili. And I think maybe what we were trying to do is best summarized in people's reactions, which is a lot of people come away saying, I never realized they're just like us. So the film very much delves into it. The story takes you into, it's an emotional story, and it takes you into that side of elephant life. And I think that we wanted the most important thing, the thing we felt we could, obviously we wanted to change the whole world's attitude to elephants, but we decided we better just start a little less ambitious and start where we made the film and where we all live. So taking the film out and sharing it in Kenya, because it's very easy for films sometimes never go back to the countries that they're actually made in. They're seen worldwide, but not necessarily, certainly in the areas of human-wildlife conflict, which are often very remote rural areas. So we wanted to take the film back to Kenya, and which is actually what we're about. Well, we've been doing it through all the educational resources, but now we're actually about to do through the mobile cinema. But one of the reasons we felt well placed to do this is that Etienne and his wife, Lucy Bateman, set up and run a school called Kivakoni School. It's a school which is really, I mean, Ed should probably be talking about it, but I'll just ease him into it. It's a school that is very much centered around the environment and environmental education and how we live alongside the environment. But that gave us, they have complete expertise in the Kenyan education system through that school. So it was a way of using the film, the school, and all the fact that we've all lived in Kenya for so long, so we understand and are part of life out there, and just making sure that the film got back home.
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, you have such a commitment, 4 years in the field making this film, but also that same kind of commitment to the outreach and the impact. And Etienne, I'd love to hear more from you. And it is really amazing that you're by the campfire in Kenya joining us today. I would like to hear more about why is it so important to reach children? Why is it kind of the way of really affecting change, and how are you going about that with your outreach through the schools?
Well, thank you, Maggie. I mean, I think I'd come back to a point you made early on. Is with any film, the impact has to start somewhere. And I think, as for Vicky and Mark and I and the whole team, the impact, the first impact was really the impact that the film had on us, the impact that making the film had on us. We were so incredibly fortunate to have that amount of time, to have that sort of freedom, to that creative freedom, and the space to think and really get to know our subject. And it was in doing so that we were impacted. And from that grew, firstly, obviously, an absolute commitment to doing justice to the subject. Which was an enormous task in itself. Tsavo is an extraordinary place, enormous, vast, and you can spend days not seeing anything. It was a difficult task we had set for ourselves, but with each day and we learned more and more, and that impact grew and grew. And so that commitment to giving absolute credit to the subject was something that started right from the beginning. But in the same way, the necessity to take that impact to Kenyans grew very much in tandem. And Kenya holds some of the last great wildernesses in Africa. And this was something that struck us on a daily basis, as did the challenges and the pressures that are growing constantly. So it was a realization that we had the task of both making a film and then ultimately taking that film back to the children of Kenya. And I think, to answer your question, why is it so important? I think we're here so briefly. The custodians of tomorrow are the children who are not yet born, the ones that are still in diapers, and so forth. And it is only by inspiring them towards an appreciation at an early age that we can have any hope of them becoming the leaders who will carry the mantle onwards. Lucy and I at Kivakoni, there's so many gems out there, but one of them that we cling to all the time is, let's teach children to love the world, to love nature, to appreciate nature before we ask them to save it. And that is, I think, what we are really striving to do. No more than that. Let's simply teach them to love it. Let's give them that catalytic moment, those catalytic days, those days of freedom, of be it playing in a puddle all the way through to spending time beside an elephant. Let's give them those opportunities. And if you can't give it to them in person, which Vicky, Mark and I talk about doing often as potentially the next element to the outreach, let's do it through the film, and a film that we all spent years making. So yes, it's an incredible opportunity. We had this extraordinary opportunity to spend that amount of time in the bush besides some of the greatest herds of elephants left. And we've had this extraordinary opportunity to then take it forth through the outreach campaign.
In a previous conversation, you described your website and all the different efforts that you were able to move forward on, even though it was in the middle of COVID. So
Yes.
I would love to hear you describe really an amazing amount of things that you did during essentially a year of lockdown.
We started by saying, as you probably gathered by now, let's do it through education. At one stage we asked ourselves, should we actually be making the film about issues? And then we decided, no, other people were doing that really well. The skill we could bring was taking people deep into the lives of elephants and the animals they share their world with. And we decided to approach the campaign mainly through education. And we created a whole raft of educational things. We did a series of illustrated children's books, which are learn to read books, with the idea that if you learn to read based on stories from characters in the film and the environment, you're drawing kids into characters that they'll probably love and take through the rest of their lives. So the idea is to work with KICD to get those into schools so that they become the sort of standard fare on which you're learning to read. We commissioned 3 school plays for various age groups. And all these materials are on a website that is specifically designed for use in Kenya, where people can download everything free of charge with all the different assets that might help you use them. We created videos which were like short pieces about elephants, things that weren't necessarily in the film, but if you're interested in being piqued and you wanted to know more, there are like very, very brief little pieces, and then activity workbooks to go alongside them.
And there's also a section on an inspirational sort of series about Kenyan
sort of mentorship.
Elephant experts. So it's really for kids to be able to see that there are people working in this field and have them, they're already heroes to all of us, but it was to make them known to kids, to show them that there is a path that they can take if they're interested.
And then the website also allows communities or schools to apply to show the film in their community or their school or wherever. So it's making the film more readily available. And then last year, before COVID struck, we had this big presidential premiere planned. We also had, Apple had very generously given the rights for Citizen TV, which is the most sort of viewed channel in Kenya, to do an Easter Sunday screening of the film. And sadly, the presidential premiere was cancelled the week before because of COVID, which was obviously hugely disappointing. But we continued with the Citizen screening, which basically put the film on the sort of in people's minds and raised a huge amount of interest in the film, but also in wildlife generally, and actually led to Citizen then putting on a whole series of wildlife films, because I think they saw through it that their audience was very keen to, and there was a big appetite for it. And then we were due on the back of that to launch a mobile cinema, but we really couldn't do that in COVID because for obvious reasons. And so we decided to postpone it, which was actually, in retrospect, has probably been one of the best things that happened, because it's allowed us to really expand the way in which we approach that mobile cinema. So, for example, we've now got someone called Dr. Harry Williams, who is working with Save the Elephants, who are partners on the mobile cinema, to come in and do a pre, during and after assessment of the effects of taking a film like this to communities in areas of high human-wildlife conflict. It's also that we've got this huge truck which is being specially kitted out. It's being designed so you've got the images of Athena and the characters from the film on it. And then I'd like to actually introduce you, because they're listening now. We're just putting together and doing the first stages of training and preparation with our Kenyan team, who is going to take that truck all around Kenya from November. I wonder if we can just see them for a moment and say hello. Hi guys.
Congratulations.
I think one of the very exciting things is that this team of people all of them are bringing amazing expertise, from actors through to conservationists through to GIS mapping experts, bringing all those skills to the Elephant Queen Mobile Cinema. But what they're doing right now is being immersed in learning and absorbing everything you could possibly want to know about elephants, the environment, and all the things that they will need to be able to be totally conversant in when taking the film around Kenya. And so it's extremely exciting to be at this stage. And these are the guys who are going to be the voice of the Elephant Queen. What I really enjoyed with the team was hearing what it was that inspired them to want to join the team. Maybe it's very hard to see you all there, but maybe why doesn't Catherine start by just telling us that, because I think it's just very inspiring to hear that.
Hi, this is Catherine. I hope you can see me. Well, it goes across from personal life growing up as a child in a very different kind of environment and situation and family differences, all the way to then through my life period as an adulting young woman to discover a career in the art industry, and then zeroing down to working with young people, and in that sense children, in an environment that allowed me to appreciate the surroundings and to realize that if once my environment was positive, then it created a whole lot of imagination and openness to creativity and the ability that then the mind is in a stable state, to the fact that gathering all this information, and then how do I then transfer it back to the children after specializing and understanding probably to a certain level of how to communicate with them through creativity. And then me being part of the outreach is also then going to make it even more richer, because then I'm one of those people that Victoria just mentioned, that I interacted with elephants. I saw them in parks on safaris and stuff, but probably never crossed my mind that they're just actually like us. Being a mother and seeing the story unfolding, then I was literally taken aback that, oh wow, they're just not huge animals that I admire from afar, but I have that depth and relation to them through the film. So it's quite a belief of a personal level, but I also believe that all the team members, that we are all here together, that we believe there's a transformation that really can happen through all forms of expertise that we have acquired skills through our life's journeys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the other amazing thing, Maggie, that's happening is that Eric, who's sitting on the left, is working with Vulcan, so doing mapping or so that what we want to be able to do is to have a record, but also share while we're going along everything about the mobile cinema tour. And so, Eric, do you want to say a little bit about what you've been doing? Because it's amazing. The collaborations that have come out of this project have been totally inspiring. And I think what Eric's doing is one of them.
It's been amazing because through that we've been able to visually map out all our potential venues. So this is great because it allows us to, to see where we're going or where we will be, and be able to reach out to different schools and community centers even before we get there. And every point on the map actually breaks down into various attributes, such as the number of students and the viewers and all the type of parameter within different venues. So this has been really helpful. And aside from that, we're also going into a phase where we'll be able to animate this such that the truck can be able to, to be in a 3D format, and people can be able to see how soon we will be in a particular area before we actually get to the area. So this allows us to create some hype, and yeah, before we actually get to a destination. I am excited for that. It's been a journey, and to be honest, in the beginning it was just a blank page, and Etienne and I were a bit scared to kick it off, but yeah, we trusted in the process, and it's been a great journey, and I'm really glad for that. Vulcan was very supportive through it all, and yeah, the whole technical team and everything was very supportive, so I'm excited for that.
That is so cool. Congratulations. That is just amazing. How many different communities will you be going to?
So for the community centers, that is about 73 community centers. And when I say community centers, we're talking about various spots. In some areas, this could be homesteads or villages, or basically where the community would be gathering, and that would be aside from schools. That would be about 73 centers, and for the schools it would be 173.
Wow, that's so impressive. So keep in touch. Let us know how it's going.
Thank you guys for joining us this evening.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Wow, that's just an amazing effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that takes impact to another whole level when you start to think about the local impact. So you've managed to reach the policy leaders, you're reaching through the schools, and you're reaching in areas that normally won't have an opportunity to see the film, much less bring communities together to use the film as a catalyst for change and for conservation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the exciting things about working with Save the Elephants, is that the film, we're very much partners with them on this, and the film is we all hope is enabling them to open the conversations and activities with these communities, where normally if they turn up, there's probably a lot of resistance, because whereas the film kind of changes hearts and minds, opens the doors, and then, for example, they have an amazing toolbox where if you live in a particular area, there are suggestions for how you might more peacefully live alongside elephants, depending on your topography, rainfall, all the different things which will affect what you grow and how you have to live. So the film is being kind of used through this tour. They'll be with us and going in afterwards to open the conversation and to continue the work, because I think we were all really keen that you don't just go and do a tour, show the film, and life goes on, but that actually this is just opening the door and building slowly. And that has been our approach to the entire impact campaign, has been, you won't just do it in one fell swoop. This is a kind of groundswell of activity and of changing hearts and minds and drawing people in, and just trying to inspire a different and changing attitudes and understandings.
And the question we often get asked, Maggie, is, well, how do you know this is making a difference? And it's always sort of anecdotally, we can say, well, somebody said that they were going to knock down their fence because they wanted elephants to regain their old migration routes. And we have stories like that, but it's the inclusion of the postdoctorate, Dr. Harry Williams, who will hopefully be following up and be going into communities before the cinema arrives and doing questionnaires, and he will hopefully be able to quantify the change that is happening. And hopefully by this time, in a year's time, we'll know the impact it has.
And that's so important, how do we evaluate impact? I think we have a lot of ideas about what we want to do, what change do we want to affect, but it is difficult to really know, did it change behaviors? I mean, or did people just kind of let it fade into the and go on to something else, or lose that sense of urgency? And so being able to do this multifaceted outreach campaign, both through the schools, which is just an amazing kind of grassroots, ground roots approach in and of itself, but then to really go out into communities with young local people who are passionate about the film, passionate about conservation, to talk to the different communities. I mean, 73 communities is a lot.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of how long you'll continue to do this?
Well, we've got, we're budgeted at the moment for 6 to 7 months. And what we're hoping is, it was very difficult to see everybody in the room there in the tent, but we've got a guy called Alfie, who is doing all the gathering of the media. So he'll be filming, photographing, and then feeding through to somebody who will do the social media for us. So that basically it would, in an absolutely ideal world, we'd get the whole of Kenya talking about it and saying, oh, where is it next? How can we see it? And get the sort of that buzz going. But then internationally, we'd have people saying, oh my God, look at the difference it's making. Let's help support continuing it, or let's help support getting those kids now into the park so they actually have a more direct experience with wildlife. And so really, that's what we're hoping will happen. That would be ideal if that happened, and then we can grow the amount of time the mobile cinemas on the road.
I mean,
And
it
I think
creates a model. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, and I think I'd add on that, and I think just largely as a guidance to others who will be or who have this sort of opportunity, is ultimately it's something we should all be doing as much as possible around our films. And for Vicky and Mark and I, when we first started, it was really and in a way, as Eric said too, it was a blank canvas, and one in which, yeah, sure, Lucy and I have experience in education, but not of this nature. And so it was a daunting task, how to have the greatest possible impact. And we've been so fortunate in that we've had input from so many wonderful people, and that was born from very much a bottom-up approach, as opposed to us as filmmakers coming in and dictating or having preconceived ideas. We spent nearly a year when we finally decided we're going to do it, and as we were finishing the film, we spent almost a year researching how best to do it. And obviously each subject is different, each country is different, but what we did do was that we started at the bottom and really went directly to conservation organization, conservation educationists, and asked them for their advice. It all started with a workshop that we had here in Kenya at Kivukoni, where we invited conservation educationists to here for 3 days of discussion and brainstorming and thinking and linking, and it was from discussions with them all, the people who are at the front line of not just not just conservation education, but the challenges of conservation, asking them what they needed. All we had at that time was the film and obviously a commitment. So that was really, really valuable, and a technique which feels like a no-brainer now, but one which I would encourage, and I know we would all encourage anyone to take, is to really identify the people who the product can benefit, and then use their experiences to define what it is you actually do. And here in Kenya, progressively we are aware that the message of conservation has to come from within. It has to be Kenyans. It has to be that wonderful people group of people who are in the tent not far away from me, them and all the extraordinary conservation educationists who are out there really chipping away at the wall and at the enormous challenges that we all face in convincing our respective populace to take conservation and wildlife seriously. So yes, that is very much the process, and I think that will come to shine through in the impact assessment, because again, we'll be going back to them and saying to them, as well as to the individuals, is this making a difference, and is it making the biggest difference we can possibly make? Because we can all make a small difference, and we must, but when we have an opportunity such as we have had, we've got to have the greatest possible impact. And it is, again, only working with the people who are at the front line, and for us, that's been both a pleasure and a privilege.
This is absolutely so important. The idea of forming those alliances from the very beginning of your project, so that you can really understand and work together and be collaborative and understand how to most strongly affect that impact that needs to happen. And you taking the time to lay that groundwork. I mean, I think your entire impact and outreach campaign really creates a model for a lot of filmmakers to think about, how do you build those alliances and lay that strong foundation at the very early stages? And how do you carry that through? And then, thinking beyond the film, what is it that can really reach out to people to get them even from, kids jumping in puddles to being by elephants, to having a mobile cinema tour that takes this film into every single community to use as a catalyst for discussion and inspiration around elephant conservation.
But I think one of the things that's, and I love the way you're talking to our community of filmmakers. And I think one of the things that has to be recognized is you have to make an incredibly deep personal commitment to it, because it's not like making the film where it's the job, you're doing it, to your best. This is all done on blood, sweat and tears, and your own time, and complete hanging on to the vision of, because these things when they start are nothing, there's nothing. And then, so you just fix your ideas, and then it grows and grows and grows. But it's not like you can just dip in and dip out. We've been developing this and will continue to develop this for years and years. But it also goes back right to when we first came out of the field and we shot the film, and we had zero money left, because we basically, we had no money left to edit it, which was fine, because we started here at home editing it. But we then had to find the money to do the whole of the rest of the film. And what was incredible was that a really important element of it came together then, which was that Bestseller Foundation came on board both to support the film and the outreach campaign. And they would not have come on board just to support the film, but it was because we had this double vision of something which was commercial and something which was philanthropic, that that combination, and that one could support the other, was what meant that literally from when we went into post-production, all the ideas we developed for what we hoped we could do for impact was able to actually start being put together because of Bestseller Foundation. And they have been like a rock for us, and they're an incredibly important part, all the people who are part of that. Yeah.
It takes vision, and it takes people who then share your vision.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that long range commitment. I mean, there's so much programming that could make a difference if it had that kind of outreach impact support. And it's not a model that's across the board by any stretch at this point. But at least some people on the forefront, like yourselves, that are really trying to pave the way of that idea of yes, we're going to make this amazing film, but it also has so much, or I should say, and it also has so much opportunity to affect real change. And, you know, if there's a funding model around that that could become a little bit more used across the board, I think we'd all benefit.
I think one of the things also is that our approach to making films has always been to be in one area for a long period of time, not to zip around all over the place or all over the world to make a film. So our commitment to Kenya and our commitment in this film to Tsavo goes on for years and years and years. So it means that when you do an impact campaign, you are really embedded in that place. And that allows you to have the commitment to start an impact campaign that you know is going to take your attention for years and years. It allows us to, you know, you can see how deeply rooted Etienne and Lucy are with Kibakoni there. We're the same through our films. We've worked in East Africa almost solidly for 25 years. And I think that is also good for the environment because we're all in one place rather than zipping all over the place. But, yeah, but it does allow you to dig deeper and make things happen that way, which I think is immensely satisfying as well as productive.
No, and I would second that absolutely in terms of how satisfying it is. And it's important that we voice that. It's a lot of sweat and it's a lot of work. But you know, the joy that one gets from seeing it, and the joy that we will get from we've had pilots, we've done pilots with the film, and in rural communities, and you know, to a large extent that was the impetus to take it further. You know, the visuals when you have a child sitting lit by a screen, totally mesmerized by what he or she is watching, it's painted forever in your memory. Big eyes, gentle smile, or whatever it may be, but this is what's in my mind. You know, open eyes, gentle smile, absolutely taken by what they're seeing, and you can see it going in. You can see that child is having what we as a team call that catalytic moment, which we've all had in our respective lives. That moment, or those moments on which our lifelong commitment to nature is built. And as filmmakers, we're incredibly fortunate to be able to do that. So again, to filmmakers, this is something not that just you must do for purposes of a greater good, but do it for yourselves as well. It's enormously rewarding and enormously exciting. And once you find the right partners, it's very, very doable.
That's a good message for funders as well, right?
Yeah.
Just had to slip that in there. This has been an amazing conversation, and I didn't know that Eric and the team were going to be joining us, so that was really a treat to hear from them. And I can't wait to hear more about the mobile cinema and see the pictures and the social media. I just think that's such an incredible model to go forward with. I think we probably are at our time, but I always want to ask a couple of final questions. One is, do you have any other advice for the filmmakers, the funders, the partners, you know, any advice, anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to add?
Never give up. I mean, I think this thing of having a vision to do something, whatever it is, and then just fixing on that vision and finding a way. And it is amazing what you can make happen. And it's scary, you're out on a limb, you can fall flat on your face, but you just keep going towards it. And you know, if it's a solid, good vision, it's just so worthwhile. So I just say, just follow your visions, follow your dreams.
Yeah, and I'd add that the time is now. It's not something that one should wait on, and it really is. The time is now, and we're all very conscious of the how true that is. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need. No more needs to be said. We're aware of it, and we must seize these opportunities. And if they're not there to seize, then we need to make them. And it's got to be done. It's got to be done, and we're in the industry is so poised for it. It's now.
Yeah, and hopefully commissioners will get behind more and more of this, which I think is happening, but it needs, I think people have to realize it doesn't happen quickly. And, you know, if you just, it's no good just putting a whole load of things up on a website. You've actually got to make it happen in the real world as well.
Yeah, and globally accessible, or certainly locally accessible. But
Yeah.
Absolutely, it has to happen now. I mean, we know what a crisis we're in. We know what powerful, compelling storytelling can do to engage audiences and inspire them. And if we have more models like the Elephant Queen and your Impact Outreach Mobile Cinema campaign out there to look at and say, that's the way to do it, more power to you and to all of us, right?
Well, actually, that's another thing that Etienne, maybe you want to just talk a little bit about the fact that everything that we've done towards making the mobile cinema tour happen is going to be open source and available. And that's part of the reason for working with Vulcan, so that other people who come in and say, we want to do a tour like that in Kenya, whether it's for whatever it might be, whether it's the environment or whatever, they will be able to dip in, see where those communities are, how many people there are. Do you want to briefly just open it up?
Yes, absolutely. This is not, but it's the amount of work that's gone into it. We would love to see others piggyback on it, capitalize on it, use it. So we've, as Eric mentioned and Vicky mentioned, we spent a long time mapping. So we've coming back to all these various conservation organizations, we went to them and asked them for their data. So the schools that they've reached out to. That's how we've effectively created our educational web, which is now an educational web which is ultimately going to turn into an educational corridor across the country, focusing on, in our case, focusing on communities and schools and around national parks, around protected areas. So I mean, we can't show it to you right now, but you know, when you look at the map, which Eric has been working on, and which has taken him months to get to the point it's at now, you can visually see a corridor of schools and communities which circumnavigates all the protected areas, and that's forever out there. And we're in a position now where each school is a dot, each school is a red dot, each community is an orange dot, and you can click on that one and you can see what the demographics are of the school, how many boys, how many girls, the contact numbers, and that a variety, when we're going to see them, whether in our case, whether the school is appropriate for night screenings, taking into account the dangers of night screening in terms of wildlife and so forth. There's a huge amount of data there, and we're adding to that constantly. So what will come of this is indeed something which others can use. And we're very, very excited about that. It's not limited to us. We want to see something which can be utilized and capitalized by either add-on value add projects which we come up with, or projects which others want to bring to fruition.
Well, I'll look forward to hearing more about that in next year's interview. This is going to be an annual thing, I can tell.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was a pleasure, insightful. Vicky, Mark, Etienne, Eric, and the team, really a pleasure talking with you today. And I've learned so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
Really inspired by that.
Thank you for shining a light on it all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.